called the cleaner's daughter to play chess as a joke until she showed she's a genius. Richard Thompson was annoyed with the overdue reports when he decided that Saturday would be productive at the office. The cleaner had asked to bring her daughter, claiming she had no one to leave the girl with, and he had agreed just to avoid losing the cleaning service. That's when he saw the child standing at his office door, staring at the chessboard that always sat on the side table. Richard smirked dismissively, thinking how he could amuse himself at her expense. "Do you know how to play that?" he asked, pointing at the pieces. The girl simply nodded timidly. "How interesting. Come here then. Let's see what you can do," Richard said, gesturing to the chair across the board. Carla Rodriguez appeared in the doorway, clutching a cleaning rag with trembling hands. "Mr. Richard, I'm sorry. She won't be a bother. Amy Claire, come here, let the doctor work." No, Carla, let her stay. It'll be educational," Richard replied, savoring every word. Amy Claire approached the table with cautious steps. Her brown hair was tied in a simple ponytail, and she wore a plain beige t-shirt that looked like it had seen better days. Richard adjusted his crisp white dress shirt and glanced at the expensive watch on his wrist, calculating how long this little game would last. "You take white," he said, arranging the pieces with precise movements. "Do you know how each one moves?" "I do," Amy Claire murmured, her voice barely audible. "Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now, back to the story. Richard expected her to move a pawn randomly, maybe push a few pieces without thought. What he didn't expect was to see the girl study the board for long seconds before advancing the king's pawn 2 squares, a classic correct move. "Interesting," he muttered, moving his own pawn. Carla continued cleaning, but her eyes kept drifting to the table where her daughter sat. She knew that look of concentration well, but she never imagined it had anything to do with chess. Amy Claire rarely talked about what she did at school or in her free time. Amy Claire's third move made Richard stop smiling. She developed her knight to a position he recognized from corporate tournaments he attended. The fourth move confirmed his suspicions. This child wasn't just moving pieces randomly. "Where did you learn to play like this?" he asked, his voice losing its condescending tone. "At school," Amy Claire replied, not taking her eyes off the board. "What school teaches chess like this?" Amy Claire didn't answer right away. Her slender fingers picked up the bishop and placed it on a diagonal that opened multiple attack possibilities. Richard felt a chill down his spine. That move was too sophisticated for a child her age. Teacher Teresa brought an old computer to the classroom, said she'd teach us how to use it. When we finished our work, she let us look at some games, Amy Claire explained, finally looking at him. "I liked watching the online chess matches." "Watching? Just watching?" "At first, yes. Then I started imagining what moves I'd make. Then the teacher taught me how to play against the computer." Richard moved his rook, trying to create pressure in the center. Amy Claire studied the position for nearly a minute before making her next move. When she moved her queen, Richard realized he had fallen into a subtle trap. In 3 moves, he'd be in checkmate. "That's not possible," he muttered, studying the board more closely. Carla approached discreetly, pretending to clean the nearby shelf, but watching her daughter's every move. Amy Claire had discovered something she had never shared at home. The small apartment they lived in the Queens neighborhood barely had room for basic furniture, let alone games or hobbies. The first match ended in 23 moves. Richard looked at the board as if the pieces had moved on their own. Amy Claire had executed a checkmate he had only seen in advanced strategy books. "Let's play another," he said, his voice rough. "Richard, Amy Claire doesn't have to—" Carla began. "I said we're playing another," he snapped, rearranging the pieces with sharp movements. The second match was different. Richard focused completely, using every technique he had learned in the corporate tournaments he had participated in for years. He was known at the company as an excellent player, having won 3 consecutive championships among executives. Amy Claire played even more cautiously, taking her time with every decision. Richard noticed she briefly closed her eyes before each move, as if visualizing something he couldn't see. "What are you thinking when you close your eyes?" he asked during one of her turns. "I see the board in other ways," Amy Claire replied. "Like it's a story, you know? Each piece has a personality, and they talk to each other about where they want to go." Richard shook his head, annoyed by what seemed like a childish answer. He focused even harder, determined not to be humiliated again. But when Amy Claire sacrificed her rook in a move that initially seemed like a glaring mistake, Richard realized too late that it had been another brilliant play. The second match ended in checkmate after 31 moves. Carla watched everything with a mix of pride and growing concern. She knew Richard Thompson's temper well. She had worked for him for nearly 3 years and knew he didn't usually handle situations that bruised his inflated ego well. "One last game," Richard said, his jaw tight. "Mr. Thompson, maybe it's best to stop here," Carla suggested, stepping closer to the table. "Carla, go back to your work. Amy Claire and I are having fun, aren't we?" Amy Claire nodded, but Carla saw something different in her daughter's eyes, a maturity that shouldn't be there in a 12-year-old, as if Amy Claire understood exactly what was happening in that room and the consequences it might bring. The third match was the most intense. Richard played as if his reputation depended on it, and maybe it did. Every move was calculated, every piece placed with surgical precision. He used openings he had memorized from grandmasters, combinations he had studied for hours. Amy Claire countered each of his attacks with perfect defense, then began building her own offense. Richard realized he was being outmatched, not just in technique, but in something far deeper, pure intuition for the game. When Amy Claire moved her knight to the square that would seal the match's fate, Richard knew he had lost. Not just the game, but something much more important. The image of intellectual superiority he had so carefully cultivated. "Checkmate," Amy Claire said softly, her small hands carefully arranging the pieces. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the vacuum cleaner running in the hallway. Richard looked at the board, then at Amy Claire, then at Carla, who watched everything with a cautious expression. "How can a child—" he began, but didn't finish. "Amy Claire is very smart," Carla said, her voice full of maternal protectiveness. "Since she was little, she's always been different from other kids." "Different how?" "She learned things very quickly. She started reading on her own at 4, never needed help with homework. But I never thought—" Richard stood up abruptly, pushing away from the table, as if the pieces could physically attack him. His mind processed what had happened. He, Richard Thompson, with a degree in business administration from the best private university in New York City, winner of countless corporate tournaments, had been defeated 3 times in a row by a poor 12-year-old girl. "Where did she really learn to play like that?" he asked, turning to Carla. "I already told you at school, the teacher, Teresa, it's not possible to reach this level just by watching games online. Someone taught her advanced techniques." Amy Claire, who had remained silent, finally spoke. "No one taught me techniques. I just see the patterns." "What patterns?" "The pieces. They make pictures on the board. And the pictures tell stories about what's going to happen next. When I see a story I don't like, I change it." Richard stared at the girl as if she had spoken in a foreign language. That simple, poetic explanation described something he had tried to understand through technical books and hours of study. The ability to visualize the game several moves ahead. Carla moved closer to her daughter, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "Amy Claire, go play in the waiting room for a bit. I need to finish cleaning here." "But Mom, I was enjoying the game." "Go on, sweetheart. Dr. Richard needs to work." After Amy Claire left, Carla turned to Richard, who was still staring fixedly at the chessboard. "Mr. Richard, I hope you won't be upset with Amy Claire. She's just a child. She didn't know that." "That I'd lose," he finished, his voice sharp. "That wasn't what I was going to say." "Then what were you going to say, Carla?" Carla hesitated. She knew her employer's volatile temper well, but she also felt she needed to protect her daughter somehow. "I was going to say she didn't know she was part of something serious. To her, it was just a game." "A game," Richard repeated sarcastically. 3 straight losses to a 12-year-old were just a game. The tone of the conversation was making Carla increasingly uncomfortable. She knew stories of other housekeepers who had been fired for far less. "Mr. Richard, if you prefer, I won't bring Amy Claire when I work on Saturdays anymore." "No," he said abruptly. "I want her to come back." "What?" "Next time you work on the weekend, bring her again. I want to observe her talent more closely." Carla felt a chill. There was something in Richard's voice she didn't like. She knew that tone well. It was the same one he used when planning some corporate move that would only benefit himself. "All right, Mr. Richard." "And Carla?" "Yes? What happened here today stays between us, understand? I don't want you telling anyone about your daughter's abilities." "Of course, Mr. Richard." But even as she agreed, Carla knew Richard was hiding something. In the 3 years she had worked for him, she had learned to read his expressions, and right now she saw something that deeply worried her. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The following Saturday, Amy Claire returned to the office with her mother. Richard had spent the entire week thinking about those matches, replaying every move in his mind, trying to understand where he had gone wrong. More than that, he had researched chess prodigies online, uncovering stories of children who became grandmasters before the age of 15. When Amy Claire entered his office, Richard Thompson was ready. He had rearranged the chessboard and studied new strategies during the week. "Hello, Amy Claire. It's good to have you back," he said, forcing a smile. "Would you like to play a few more games?" "Can I?" she asked, her eyes lighting up. "Of course. In fact, I brought some things for you to see." Richard had printed diagrams of famous matches, classic openings, and chess puzzles. He wanted to test just how far that girl's knowledge went. "Do you recognize this position?" he asked, showing her a famous diagram. Amy Claire studied the sheet for a few seconds. "It looks like a game I saw on the school computer. The white knight goes here," she said, pointing to a specific square, "and then the queen delivers checkmate in 3 moves." Richard checked the solution he had printed. Amy Claire was right. Not only had she recognized the position, but she had found the winning continuation in seconds. "What about this one?" He showed another diagram. "This one's harder," Amy Claire said, focusing. "Black is ahead, but white can draw if they move the rook to this column." Again, she was correct. Richard felt a mix of admiration and frustration growing inside him. How could a child with no formal training have such insight? "Amy Claire, would you like to learn more about chess? I mean, really learn, with a teacher?" "A teacher?" she asked, confused. "Yes, someone who could teach you to play even better." Amy Claire glanced toward the room where her mother was working. "My mum doesn't have money to pay for a teacher." "What if I paid?" "Why?" The simple, direct question caught Richard off guard. Why, indeed? He wasn't sure of his own motivation. Part of him wanted to understand how that girl had beaten him so easily. Another part saw an opportunity to associate himself with an exceptional talent, maybe even gaining some prestige for discovering a future champion. Because you have a special gift, it would be a shame to waste it. But I don't want to waste anything. I like playing the way I play. But you could get even better. You could compete in tournaments, win prizes, become famous. Amy Claire looked at him with a strange expression, as if he had suggested something completely absurd. "I don't want to be famous. I just want to play." The simplicity of her answer irritated Richard more than it should have. That girl had a gift people spent their whole lives trying to develop, and she treated it all like a casual game. "Let's play then," he said, setting up the pieces. The first match that day was different. Richard had studied, prepared, analyzed his past mistakes, but Amy Claire seemed to have improved too, as if a week's break had been enough for her to reach an even higher level. "How do you get better so fast?" he asked after losing again. "I dream about the games," Amy Claire replied. "At night, I see boards in my head and play against myself." "You dream about chess?" "Almost every night. It's fun." Richard shook his head in disbelief. He had read about grandmasters who visualized matches mentally, but that was the result of years of intensive training. Amy Claire did it naturally, as if she had been born for it. Carla Rodriguez finished cleaning and came to pick up her daughter. Seeing Richard's tense face, she immediately realized what had happened. "Amy Claire, let's go. It's time." "Already? But I wanted to play more." "Another time, sweetheart." When they left, Richard was alone with his thoughts. His whole life, he had prided himself on being intellectually superior to those around him. His position in the company, his financial success, everything was built on the belief that he was smarter and more capable than others. A 12-year-old child had shattered that certainty in the most brutal way. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He lay in bed in his luxury apartment on the Upper East Side, staring at the ceiling and replaying every move from their matches. How could someone have that level of intuition without formal training? By Monday, he arrived at the office with a decision made. He couldn't let a situation like that happen again. His reputation was at stake, his self-esteem had been wounded, and he needed to do something to regain control. When Carla arrived for work on Monday, Richard called her into his office. "Carla, we need to talk about your daughter." "Did something happen, Mr. Thompson?" "I don't want you bringing her here anymore." "What?" "Last Saturday and the one before, your daughter displayed behavior that made me uncomfortable. She's too intense with chess, almost obsessive. That's not normal for a child." Carla stared at him, confused. "But you were the one who asked her to play. She was just having fun." "Having fun?" Richard let out a bitter laugh. "Carla, your daughter has a problem. She takes the game too seriously, gets too competitive. It's not healthy." "Mr. Thompson, I don't understand. Amy Claire has always been a calm girl, never caused any trouble." "Then you don't know your own daughter. What I saw the last 2 Saturdays was an obsessive child who can't lose gracefully." Carla knew Richard was lying, but she didn't understand why. Amy Claire had won the matches, not lost. Why was he making up this story? "If you'd prefer, I can find another place for Amy Claire when I need to work on weekends." "I'd prefer that. And Carla." "Yes?" "It would be best if you didn't tell anyone about your daughter's peculiarities. Chess can be a dangerous addiction for children. I've seen boys drop out of school because of it." Carla nodded, but inside she was more confused than ever. Why did Richard want her to hide her daughter's talent? And why was he talking about addiction and obsession when Amy Claire had just been enjoying herself? She left Richard's office with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear. Something had drastically changed in how he saw Amy Claire, and she suspected it wasn't good. For the rest of the week, Carla watched her daughter more closely. Amy Claire was the same as always, studious, calm, obedient. Occasionally, she mentioned wanting to play chess again, but she didn't seem obsessive or addicted like Richard had claimed. At school, her teacher, Teresa, noticed Amy Claire was quieter than usual. "Is something wrong, Amy Claire? You haven't been using the computer to watch chess matches. My mum said maybe I shouldn't play anymore." "Why?" "I don't know. My mum's boss said it could be an addiction." Teresa raised an eyebrow. She'd known Amy Claire for 2 years and had never seen signs of obsessive or addictive behavior. If anything, the girl had always shown a remarkable balance between school, responsibilities at home, and leisure. "Amy Claire, do you feel addicted to chess?" "What does addicted mean?" "It's when you can't stop doing something, even if it hurts you or gets in the way of other parts of your life." Amy Claire thought for a moment. "No, Miss Teresa. I like playing, but I also like studying, helping my mum, and playing with other kids. Chess is just one of the things I enjoy." Teresa sighed. There was something more going on here, and she suspected it had to do with prejudice. I had seen similar situations before, talented children from poor families being discouraged from developing their gifts because it bothered someone in a position of power. "Amy Claire, I'll talk to your mother, okay? Chess is a wonderful game, and you have a special talent for it. It would be a shame to waste that." "Okay, teacher." But Amy Claire hadn't told teacher Teresa the whole truth. She had noticed the tension between her mother and Richard Thompson, had seen the discomfort in Carla's eyes when she talked about chess games. Amy Claire was young but not naive. She understood her talent had created some kind of problem, and the last thing she wanted was to cause trouble for her mother. That night, Teresa called Carla. "Good evening, Carla. It's Teacher Teresa, Amy Claire's teacher." "Good evening, teacher. Is something wrong?" "Actually, I wanted to talk about chess. Amy Claire told me you don't want her to play anymore." Carla hesitated. How could she explain the situation without revealing details about Richard and his temper? "It's just, some people think she's focusing too much on the game." "Carla, can I be honest? Amy Claire has an exceptional talent for chess. I've seen many smart children pass through this school, but I've never seen anything like what your daughter does. Discouraging her would be a mistake." "Teacher, I don't understand anything about chess. If you think it's good for her, I think it's more than good. I think it's her future. Amy Claire could have opportunities we've never imagined. Scholarships, travel, recognition. But for that, she needs support and proper training." Carla listened in silence, torn between pride for her daughter and fear of the consequences. Richard had been very clear about not wanting her to talk about Amy Claire's talent, and Carla couldn't risk losing her job. "Teacher, can I think about it?" "Of course, Carla, but don't wait too long. Talents like Amy Claire's need to be nurtured at the right age." After hanging up, Carla stayed awake for hours thinking about the conversation. On one side was job security, the financial stability that allowed her to support Amy Claire. On the other was the possibility of a bright future for her daughter, opportunities she had never had. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The following Saturday, Carla had to work again, but this time she left Amy Claire with the neighbor, Mrs. Constance. The girl was disappointed but didn't complain. She had learned early not to cause problems for her mother. Richard immediately noticed Amy Claire's absence and felt relieved. Finally, he could work in peace without the unsettling presence of that child who had shaken his confidence so much. But the relief didn't last. All day, Richard found himself staring at the empty chessboard, remembering the matches from those 2 weeks. No matter how hard he tried to focus on reports and spreadsheets, his mind kept returning to those brilliant moves, to the natural ease with which Amy Claire mastered the game. When Carla finished work, Richard called her again. "Where's your daughter today?" "I left her with a neighbor, as you asked." "Good. That was the right decision. And about what we discussed, about not mentioning her peculiarities." "I haven't told anyone, Mr. Richard." "Great. Keep it that way." But Richard was lying. During the week, he hadn't been able to resist the temptation to research more about chess prodigies. He had discovered fascinating stories of children who became grandmasters, earned fortunes, traveled the world competing, and it deeply unsettled him. It wasn't fair that a poor girl, the daughter of his cleaning lady, had a talent that could take her places he himself would never reach. Richard had studied chess for years, had invested time and money in books and lessons, and yet had been easily defeated by someone who had learned the game casually. On Monday, Richard made a decision that would change everything. He called Marcus Silver, a colleague who worked at another company and also participated in corporate chess tournaments. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about something delicate." "Go ahead, Richard. Do you know that organization that promotes youth chess tournaments here in New York City?" "I do. Why?" "I heard about a child with exceptional talent, but in a difficult family situation. I wanted to know if they have any support programs." "They do. Why don't you send the child for an evaluation?" "It's complicated. The family is very humble, and I don't think they fully understand the importance of chess. They might feel intimidated." "I see. Do you want me to talk to them?" "Actually, I'd like you to approach it more discreetly. Maybe meet the child first, see the talent up close before involving the parents." Marcus was silent for a few seconds. "Richard, this sounds a little strange. Why don't you talk to the family directly? Because I know them, and I know they'll refuse out of pride. But if someone from the outside makes a professional approach, I don't know, man. Dealing with a child without the parents' knowledge could cause trouble." "It's not dealing with her, Marcus. It's just meeting her, assessing her talent. If she's truly exceptional, then we talk to the family. Richard managed to convince Marcus to at least meet Amy Claire, but he didn't share the whole truth about his motivations. In reality, he wanted others to see the girl's talent, to validate his own perception. If Amy Claire really was a prodigy, then his losses wouldn't be so humiliating. But there was another, darker reason. Richard was starting to devise a plan to benefit from Amy Claire's talent, perhaps presenting himself as the discoverer of a future champion, gaining prestige and recognition for identifying a genius early on. At school, Amy Claire continued her normal routine, but Teresa noticed the girl seemed more withdrawn. During recess, instead of using the computer to watch chess matches, Amy Claire would stare out the window or read books. "Amy Claire, don't you want to play chess anymore?" Teresa asked one day. "I do, teacher, but my mom said it's better if I don't play for now." "Did she say why?" "She said some people think I might get addicted." Teresa sighed. She knew this kind of situation well. She had seen many talented children discouraged by family or close ones who didn't understand the importance of nurturing special gifts. "Amy Claire, can I ask you a personal question?" "Sure, teacher. When you play chess, do you feel bad afterward, or do you think about it all day?" "No, teacher. I like playing, but I like other things too. I don't get sad or anything." "And would you like to learn more about chess? Maybe meet other kids who play too?" Amy Claire's eyes lit up for the first time in weeks. "I'd love that, teacher. But my mom..." "Let me talk to your mom again, okay?" Amy Claire nodded, but Teresa noticed a shadow of worry on her face. The girl was clearly torn between her love for chess and not wanting to cause trouble for her family. That afternoon, Teresa decided to take more direct action. Instead of calling Carla, she went in person to the building where she worked. She arrived at the end of the shift and waited at the entrance until Carla came out. "Carla, what a coincidence running into you here." "Miss Teresa, what are you doing here?" "Actually, I came to talk to you about Amy Claire. Can we speak for a few minutes?" Carla glanced nervously at the building, afraid Richard might see them talking. "Of course, Miss Teresa. Let's go over to the square." They walked to a small nearby square and sat on a bench. Teresa got straight to the point. "Carla, I know someone told you to discourage Amy Claire from chess. I want you to know that person is making a serious mistake. Ms. Teresa, Let me finish. Amy Claire doesn't just have talent for chess. She has a rare gift, the kind that comes along once in a million children. Discouraging her would be like stopping a brilliant painter from ever touching a brush." Carla lowered her head, her hands fidgeting with her purse strap. "Ms. Teresa, you don't understand. I can't risk..." "Risk what, Carla?" "Risk your daughter having opportunities you never had." "That's not it." "Then what is?" Carla looked around, checking if anyone she knew was nearby. "It's just that my boss, he doesn't like it when Amy Claire plays chess. He says she gets obsessive, that it's not good for a child." Teresa gave her a disbelieving look. "Carla, where exactly did your boss meet Amy Claire playing chess?" "She came with me to the office on 2 Saturdays. He asked her to play and what happened?" Carla hesitated, but then decided to tell the truth. "She beat him 3 times in a row. He got really angry." Teresa nodded, finally understanding the whole situation. "Carla, your boss isn't worried about Amy Claire's well-being. His ego is bruised because he lost to a child, and now he's using his position to sabotage her future. But Miss Teresa, I need this job. Amy Claire and I depend on it." "I understand, Carla. But you also need to understand that you're letting a grown man hurt your daughter out of pure vanity." Carla began to cry quietly. "What can I do, Miss Teresa? If I lose this job, we won't even have money for rent." Teresa placed a hand on Carla's shoulder, trying to comfort her. "Let's think of a solution together, but first you have to promise me you won't discourage Amy Claire anymore. Let her play at school, at least." "Okay, Miss Teresa. And second, I need your permission to introduce Amy Claire to some people who work with youth chess, serious people who can open doors for her." Carla looked at Teresa with hope, mixed with fear. "You really think this could work?" "Carla, I believe Amy Claire can go as far as she wants, Her talent is extraordinary. She just needs the opportunity. What if my boss finds out? We'll keep it quiet for now. First, let's see what opportunities are out there for Amy Claire. Once she's more established, your position will be stronger too. Carla nodded but was still visibly worried. Teresa understood this woman was caught between two powerful forces, love for her daughter and fear of financial insecurity. Ms. Teresa, can I ask you something? Of course. If this goes wrong, if my boss finds out and fires me, can you help us in any way? Teresa took Carla's hands. Carla, I promise you I'll do everything in my power to protect you and Amy Claire. You're not alone in this. That night, Carla came home and found Amy Claire doing homework at the kitchen table. For a few minutes, she watched her daughter in silence, admiring the focus and dedication she showed in everything she did. Amy Claire, yes, Mom? Would you like to start playing chess at school again? Amy Claire's eyes lit up instantly. Can I? You can, but just at school for now, okay? Okay, Mom. Amy Claire stood up and hugged Carla tightly. In that moment, Carla knew she had made the right decision, no matter the consequences that might come. The next day, Teresa discreetly arranged a meeting between Amy Claire and Marcus Silva, who had been convinced by Richard to evaluate the girl's talent. What Richard didn't know was that Teresa had spoken to Marcus before the meeting, explaining the real situation. Marcus arrived at the school during lunchtime, when Amy Claire usually used the computer to watch chess matches. Teresa introduced him as a friend who enjoyed the game and wanted to meet other players. Hello, Amy Claire. I heard you like chess. I do, sir. How about we play a game? Amy Claire looked at Teresa, who nodded encouragingly. You can play, Amy Claire. Mr. Marcus is a very kind person. They sat in front of the computer, and Marcus set up an online game. From the first moves, he realized Richard hadn't exaggerated about Amy Claire's talent. The girl played with a natural ease and intuition he rarely saw, even in experienced players. Where did you learn to play like this? Marcus asked after losing the first game. Here at school, watching other people play on the computer. Just by watching? Yes. Teacher Teresa taught me how the pieces move, but the rest I learned on my own. Marcus was impressed, not just by Amy Claire's technical skill, but by her calm, respectful attitude during the game. There were no signs of obsession or inappropriate behavior, as Richard had suggested. Amy Claire, would you like to meet other kids who also play chess? There are special schools where you could learn even more. I'd love that, Mr. Marcus, but I don't know if my mum can afford it. What if it were free? There are programs that help talented children. Amy Claire looked at Teresa again, seeking guidance. Would you like that, Amy Claire? Teresa asked. I'd love it, teacher. Marcus smiled. It was clear this girl had not just exceptional talent, but also the balanced personality needed to compete at a high level. I'll talk to your teacher about the possibilities, okay? Okay, Mr. Marcus. After Amy Claire returned to class, Marcus spoke privately with Teresa. She's truly exceptional, not just the talent, but the attitude. She's a very special child. I knew you'd be impressed. What's the next step? I need to introduce her to the Youth Talent Program coordinator. If he approves, Amy Claire could start training regularly and competing in tournaments. What about the costs? The program has scholarships for children in vulnerable situations. Amy Claire would certainly qualify. Teresa smiled, feeling things were finally moving in the right direction. Marcus, can I ask you a favor? Of course. Let's keep this discreet for now. Amy Claire's family situation is a bit complicated. I understand. I'll only speak to the necessary people in the program. That afternoon, Marcus called Richard to give feedback on the meeting. So, what did you think of the girl? Richard asked eagerly. Exactly as you said. Exceptional talent. Rarely seen anything like it. Richard felt a mix of satisfaction and frustration. It was good to know his assessment was correct, but painful to confirm he'd been beaten by someone with such superior skills. And her behavior? Did you notice anything obsessive? Marcus hesitated. Richard had mentioned behavioral issues, but he hadn't seen any. Actually, Richard, I found her very balanced, mature for her age, respectful, no signs of obsession or addiction. Are you sure? When she plays with me, she gets very competitive. Being competitive is different from being obsessive, and to be honest, a child with that kind of talent will naturally take the game seriously. Richard ended the conversation unsatisfied. He had hoped Marcus would confirm his suspicions about Amy Claire's problematic behavior, but instead, he heard nothing but praise after praise. For the rest of the week, Richard grew more irritable and withdrawn. He knew he had lied about Amy Claire, but he justified his actions by telling himself he was protecting her from unrealistic expectations. In truth, he was only protecting his own wounded ego. The following Saturday, when Carla arrived for work, Richard called her into his office. "Carla, I heard your daughter has gone back to playing chess at school." Carla froze. How had he found out? "Mr. Richard, she only plays during recess. It doesn't interfere with her studies." "That wasn't our agreement. I made it clear it would be better if she didn't play." "But sir, the teacher said—" "I don't care what the teacher said," Richard snapped. "I know your daughter better than any teacher. I've seen her obsessive behavior up close." Carla lowered her head, feeling caught between two forces once again. "Mr. Richard, Amy Claire is an obedient girl. If she's playing at school, it's because the teacher allows it. Then you'll have to choose, Carla. Either your daughter stops playing chess or you find another job." The threat hit her like a punch to the gut. Carla knew Richard was abusing his position, but she also knew she had no choice. "Mr. Richard, please, I need this job. Then handle the situation with your daughter." Carla left the room with tears in her eyes. How could she explain to Amy Claire that she had to stop playing again? How could she face Teacher Teresa and say she'd changed her mind? But there was something Richard didn't know. Teresa had already introduced Amy Claire to the coordinator of the Youth Talent Program, and things were moving faster than anyone had imagined. Professor Henry Sanders, the program coordinator, had been so impressed by Amy Claire's skills that he made an extraordinary offer, a full scholarship for advanced training, including participation in regional and national tournaments. When Teresa got the call with the news, she knew she had a powerful weapon in her hands. Amy Claire wouldn't have to depend on anyone's goodwill to develop her talent anymore. That afternoon, Teresa called Carla. "Carla, I need to speak with you urgently. Can you come to the school today?" "Did something happen to Amy Claire?" "No, nothing bad. Quite the opposite. We have wonderful news." Carla arrived at the school in the late afternoon, her eyes still red from the conversation with Richard. Teresa greeted her in her office and got straight to the point. "Carla, Amy Claire has been accepted into a special talent development program for chess. Full scholarship, training with the best instructors, participation in championships." "What do you mean, teacher?" "Remember I said I'd introduce her to some people? The program coordinator was so impressed he offered her a complete opportunity." Carla was silent for several long seconds, processing the information. "And what exactly does this mean?" "It means Amy Claire will have access to the best chess training in the state. She'll compete with other talented children. She'll have opportunities that could completely change her life." "How much does it cost?" "Nothing, Carla. The scholarship covers everything. Lessons, materials, tournament fees, transportation, everything." Carla began to cry, but this time they were tears of relief and hope. "Teacher, is this real? There's no mistake." "It's real, Carla. Your daughter is special, and finally the right people have recognized it. But what if my boss finds out?" "Carla, it's time for you to stop worrying about your boss and start thinking about Amy Claire's future. She has a unique opportunity here. But if I lose my job, if Amy Claire develops as we expect, soon you won't depend on that job anymore. Great chess players win prizes, sponsorships, college scholarships. We're talking about real financial independence." Carla looked at Teresa with a mix of hope and fear. "Are you sure about all this?" "Carla, I've worked with children for 20 years. I've never seen a talent like Amy Claire's. If anyone can do it, it's her." That night, Carla talked to Amy Claire about the opportunity. The girl was thrilled at the idea of training and competing officially. "Mum, does this mean I can really play, with other kids who know how to play well too?" "It does, sweetheart." "What about Mr. Richard? Won't he be mad?" Carla looked at her daughter, seeing in those young eyes a maturity that shouldn't have been there. Amy Claire already knew her talent bothered someone, and it broke Carla's heart. Amy Claire, Some things in life are more important than keeping certain people happy. Your talent is a gift, and it would be wrong to waste it just because someone feels bad. So, I can accept the scholarship? Yes, my dear, and Mama will always be by your side. Amy Claire hugged Carla tightly, and in that moment, both knew their lives were about to change forever. In the talent program, Amy Claire flourished quickly. Professor Henry was impressed not just by her technical skills, but by her ability to learn and adapt. Within months, she was competing at a regional level and winning most of her matches. But Amy Claire's success didn't go unnoticed. The world of youth chess in New York City was small, and soon word of the prodigy reached Richard's ears. When he discovered Amy Claire was officially competing and winning tournaments, he felt betrayed. Carla had disobeyed his direct orders, and now he saw the talent he'd tried to suppress being publicly recognized. On a particularly gloomy Monday, Richard called Carla into his office. "You've disappointed me, Carla." "Mr. Richard? Your daughter is competing in chess tournaments." After I made it clear that wasn't good for her. "Sir, she's at a special school now, with teachers who understand the subject." "And you thought you could disobey me?" "I didn't disobey, sir. I just wanted what's best for my daughter. The best would be her focusing on regular studies, like any other child her age." Carla took a deep breath, remembering Teresa's words about independence and courage. "Mr. Richard, with all due respect, Amy Claire is doing very well in regular school too. Chess isn't interfering at all." "It's not about interfering, Carla. It's about you disobeying me after I made my position clear." "And what exactly is your position, Mr. Richard?" The direct question caught Richard off guard. He couldn't admit he was acting out of wounded pride, so he made up a justification. "My position is that children from humble families should focus on practical things, not unrealistic dreams." "Unrealistic dreams?" "Sir, Amy Claire has already won 3 regional tournaments. The teachers say she could reach the national level." "And then what? Become a professional player? Live off what?" "Mr. Richard, great chess players do earn money, and besides, she could get college scholarships. She could—" "Enough!" Richard exploded. "You're being influenced by these people filling your daughter's head with illusions. I know the real world, Carla. And in the real world, people like you don't get ahead by playing games." The prejudiced comment was the last straw for Carla. For the first time in 3 years of working there, she looked Richard straight in the eye and said what she really thought. "Mr. Thompson, you are wrong. And do you know why you're wrong? Because you're afraid." "Excuse me. You're afraid that a poor 12-year-old girl might be better than you at something. And instead of accepting that like an adult, you're trying to destroy her future." The silence that followed was tense and dangerous. Richard looked at Carla as if she had completely lost her mind. "You're fired," he said, his voice icy. "I knew you'd do that," Carla replied, surprisingly calm. "But I don't regret a thing. Amy Claire is worth more than this job. Get your things and leave. Now." Carla nodded and headed for the door. Before leaving, she turned around one last time. "Mr. Thompson, one day you'll see Amy Claire on TV winning a major championship, and you'll remember you had the chance to support her, but chose to try and tear her down instead." After Carla left, Richard stood alone in his office, shaking with anger. But beneath the anger, there was something he didn't want to admit, the certainty that Carla had been right about everything. That night, Carla came home and told Amy Claire what had happened. "Mum, you lost your job because of me?" "No, sweetheart. I lost my job because I made the right choice. Sometimes in life, doing the right thing comes at a price." "But what now? How will we pay the bills?" "We'll figure it out, Amy Claire. What matters is that you stay in the chess program. Mama will find another job." Amy Claire hugged her mother, feeling guilty but also proud of the courage Carla had shown. "Mom?" "Yes?" "I'm going to train really hard and get really good at chess, so that one day we'll never have to depend on people like Mr. Thompson again." Carla smiled, seeing in those words a determination far beyond Amy Claire's years. "I know you will, sweetheart. Mama is sure of it." In the following months, as Carla searched for a new job, Amy Claire threw herself even more intensely into her training. Coach Henry noticed a change in the girl. She was more focused, more determined, as if she had found an extra motivation. "Amy Claire, you've been playing even better lately. Did something happen?" "Yes, coach. Now I know why I'm playing." "What do you mean?" "Before, I played because I liked it. Now I play because I want to prove something." "Prove what?" "That people like me and my mom can achieve big things too." Coach Henry nodded, understanding there was much more behind those words than simple youthful ambition. "Amy Claire, that's a powerful motivation. But always remember, chess should still be fun. Don't let proving something become too much pressure." "I won't, coach. I still love playing. It's just that now I have a goal too." 3 months after Carla was fired, Amy Claire qualified for the state youth championship. The news appeared in a small local paper with a photo of her studying the board and an article about her journey. That was how Richard found out just how far Amy Claire had come. Reading the article in his office, he felt a complex mix of emotions: reluctant admiration, regret, and a lingering irritation. The piece mentioned that Amy Claire came from a humble family and had overcome financial difficulties to get there. It also highlighted the support from her public school and the youth talent program. Richard tucked the paper into a drawer and tried to get back to work, but he couldn't focus. The image of Amy Claire concentrating on the chessboard haunted him all day. That night, he called Marcus Silva. "Marcus, did you read the article about that girl in the paper today?" "Yes, I did. It's the same one you introduced me to, right? Amy Claire." "That's her. It's incredible how much she's improved, and she was already exceptional when I met her." "Marcus, can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead. Do you think I did something wrong?" "What do you mean?" "With the whole Amy Claire situation. I thought I was protecting her, but..." "Richard, can I be honest? From the beginning, I found it strange that you wanted me to evaluate the girl without her parents knowing. And then, when you mentioned behavior issues I couldn't see..." "Go on." "I think you felt threatened by her talent and tried to sabotage her. I don't know if it was conscious or not, but that's how it seemed." Richard stayed silent for several seconds. "What if I wanted, I don't know, to support her in some way now?" "I think you missed that chance, Richard. Her family went through hardships because of you. I don't know if they'd even want your support now." After hanging up, Richard kept thinking about the conversation. Marcus was right. He had lost the opportunity to do the right thing at the right time. But a week later, he had an idea. What if he could support Amy Claire anonymously? What if he could contribute to her success without anyone knowing it was him? Richard began researching youth sports sponsorships. He discovered many business owners supported promising young athletes, covering travel costs, equipment, and advanced training. Through a lawyer, he set up a structure to sponsor Amy Claire anonymously. The money would be channeled through a fake foundation, and neither Amy Claire nor Carla would know where the support came from. Professor Henry received the call on a Tuesday. "Professor, this is John Sanders from the New Talents Foundation. We'd like to offer a special scholarship to one of your students, Amy Claire Rodriguez." "What kind of scholarship?" "Full coverage for participation in national and international tournaments, plus training with grandmasters. We're talking about a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." "And why did you choose Amy Claire?" "We've been following her results in regional tournaments. She's clearly an exceptional talent." Professor Henry was skeptical. Foundations didn't just appear out of nowhere offering such specific opportunities. "Can I know more about this foundation? Who are the sponsors?" "We're an organization that prefers to remain anonymous. Our focus is solely on developing young talent." "I see. I'll speak with Amy Claire's family and get back to you in a few days." When Professor Henry told Amy Claire and Carla about the offer, both were suspicious. "Professor, doesn't this seem a little odd?" Carla asked. "I thought so too, Carla. Reputable foundations are usually more transparent about their sponsors." "What if it's some kind of trick?" Amy Claire said. "It's possible. That's why I suggest we investigate further before accepting anything." Professor Henry made some calls to colleagues who worked in sports sponsorships. No one had heard of the so-called New Talents Foundation. Carla, this foundation doesn't officially exist. Someone is using a fake name to try to sponsor Amy Claire. But who would do that? I don't know. It could be someone well-meaning who wants privacy, or it could be someone with ulterior motives. Amy Claire, who had been quiet during the conversation, finally spoke up. Professor, I have a suspicion. What is it? I think it might be Mr. Richard, my mum's old boss. Carla looked at her daughter, surprised. Why do you think that, Amy Claire? Because he's the only person who knows about my talent and has the money to do something like this, and also because he's probably feeling guilty for what he did to us. Professor Henry nodded thoughtfully. That's a possibility. What do you all think we should do? I think we should refuse, said Carla. If it's really him, I don't want anything from that person. Mom, can I say something? Amy Claire interjected. Of course, sweetheart. If it really is Mr. Richard, maybe this is his way of apologizing. And if the money can help me get where I want to go, why not accept it? Amy Claire, you don't understand. That man humiliated us, cost me my job. I do understand, Mom. But if he's offering help now, maybe he's realized he was wrong. And I can use that help to prove we're worth so much more than he thought. Carla was torn between wounded pride and her desire to see her daughter achieve her dreams. Professor, what do you think? I think Amy Claire has an interesting perspective. If the sponsorship is legitimate and comes with no hidden conditions, it might be worth accepting. What matters is that Amy Claire stays focused on her goals, no matter where the support comes from. After much debate, they decided to accept the sponsorship, but with conditions. Full transparency about how the money would be used, and no control over Amy Claire's sports decisions. Richard, watching from afar through his lawyer, felt relieved when he heard the sponsorship had been accepted. For the first time in months, he felt he was doing something constructive about the situation. With the financial support, Amy Claire was able to compete in national and international tournaments. Her performance was exceptional. In 6 months, she won 2 national youth championships and placed 3rd in an international tournament. The national media began taking interest in the story of the prodigy from a humble family who was conquering the chess world. TV reports highlighted her journey, always mentioning the obstacles she had overcome. Richard watched every interview, feeling a mix of vicarious pride and deep regret. He had tried to destroy that talent, and now he saw Amy Claire shining on the national stage. In one particularly moving interview, Amy Claire spoke about her motivation. I play to show that any child can achieve great things, no matter where they come from. And I also play to make my mom proud because she always believed in me, even when others didn't. Those words struck Richard like a knife. Amy Claire was referring to him, even without naming names. The girl had turned his attempt at sabotage into fuel for her success. 6 months later, Amy Claire was invited to represent the United States in a World Youth Championship. The news made the front page of the country's top sports newspapers. Professor Henry was ecstatic. Amy Claire, do you realize what this means? You'll represent the United States on the world stage. I know, Professor. I can hardly believe it. And your mom, how is she taking it? She's been crying with pride since we got the news. That night, Carla called Teresa to share the joy. Professor, can you believe it? Amy Claire is going to represent the United States. Carla, I always knew she'd go far. Remember when I said it would be a shame to waste her talent? I do, Professor. And you were right about everything. You too are an example of courage. You stood up to powerful people to do what was right. Professor, can I confess something? Of course. Sometimes I still have nightmares about what could have happened if we'd given up chess when that man told us to. But you didn't give up, Carla, and look where you are now. The night before her trip to the World Championship, Amy Claire received an unexpected call. It was Marcus Silver. Amy Claire, I don't know if you remember me. I'm Marcus. We played together at school a few months ago. Of course I remember, Mr. Marcus. How are you? I'm well. I called to congratulate you on your world ranking. It's an incredible achievement. Thank you. Amy Claire, can I ask you a personal question? Go ahead. Do you know who's sponsoring you through the New Talents Foundation? Amy Claire hesitated. She and her mother had developed a strong suspicion but had never confirmed it. I have an idea, but I'm not sure. It's Richard Thompson. I thought so. Why is he doing this? Because he knows he made a serious mistake with you and your mother. This is his way of trying to make amends. And why doesn't he talk to me directly? Because he's ashamed, Amy Claire. And because he knows you have every reason to refuse any help from him. Amy Claire was thoughtful for a few seconds. Mr. Marcus, can I ask you a favor? Of course. Can you tell him I know it's him, and that I'm not angry, that I'm using his help to achieve my goals, and that this is good for everyone? Are you sure? I am. I've learned that holding on to anger only holds us back. I'd rather use all my energy to play well. When Marcus relayed the message to Richard, he was moved. Amy Claire's maturity was impressive, especially considering how he had behaved. That night, Richard made a decision. He would go to the airport the next morning to say goodbye to Amy Claire in person, apologizing and wishing her luck. At the airport, Carla and Amy Claire were surrounded by journalists and photographers. It was a moment of great emotion. The girl who had started playing chess on an old-school computer was leaving to represent the United States in the world. Amid the commotion, Amy Claire saw a familiar figure approaching. Richard Thompson, visibly nervous and carrying a small gift. "Amy Claire," he said, his voice trembling. "Can I speak with you for a minute?" Carla turned and saw Richard. Her first reaction was anger, but Amy Claire touched her arm. "It's okay, Mom. Let him talk." Richard stepped closer, clearly emotional. "Amy Claire, I came here to apologize for what I did to you and your mother, for what I tried to do with your talent." "I know, Mr. Richard." "You know?" "I know you're the one sponsoring me, and I know you were trying to help in your own way." Richard looked at her in surprise. You're not angry?" "I was at first, but then I realized anger would only hold me back. I chose to use all my strength to get better at chess." "Amy Claire, you're much more mature than I was at your age, than I am now, really. Mr. Richard, can I tell you something? Of course, when you tried to stop me from playing, I was very sad, but it also gave me a strength I didn't know I had. It made me want to prove that people like me and my mom can achieve great things too." Richard looked at Carla, who was silently watching the conversation. "Carla, I owe you much bigger apologies. You were just protecting your daughter and I—" "Mr. Richard," Carla interrupted, "you don't need to explain. What's done is done. What matters is that Amy Claire is where she deserves to be." "I brought something for you, Amy Claire," said Richard, handing her the gift. Amy Claire opened the package and found a fine wooden chessboard with exquisitely carved pieces. "It's beautiful, Mr. Richard, thank you." "Amy Claire, I want you to know I'll be cheering for you in the championship, and that I'm very proud of who you've become." "Thank you. That means a lot to me." The moment was interrupted by a journalist who approached. "Amy Claire, it's time to board. Can we take one last photo?" As the photographers arranged the session, Richard quietly stepped away. But before leaving completely, Amy Claire heard speaking to the journalists. "I want to dedicate my participation in this championship to all the children who have big dreams but face difficulties, and also to the people who changed their minds and decided to support rather than hinder." Richard Thompson knew that phrase was directed at him. He left the airport with tears in his eyes, but for the first time in a long while, they were tears of something resembling joy. Amy Claire competed in the World Youth Championship and placed 5th, an extraordinary result for someone in her first international appearance. More important than the ranking was the recognition she gained. Several grandmasters commented on her unique style and her promise for the future. When she returned to the United States, she was welcomed as a national hero. The airport was packed with fans, journalists, and onlookers. Amy Claire had become a symbol that talent can overcome any social barrier. At the press conference, a journalist asked, "Amy Claire, what's your next goal?" "I want to keep improving and one day become a grandmaster. But I also want to help other children who have talent but lack opportunities." "How do you plan to do that?" "I'm going to create a free chess school for children from underprivileged communities. so no talented child has to depend on others' goodwill to develop their gifts. The answer was met with enthusiastic applause. Amy Claire had transformed her personal experience into a greater mission. In the following months, with the support of sponsors and the government, Amy Claire inaugurated the New Talents Chess School in a South Side community of New York City. The first class had 20 children, all from low-income families. Richard Thompson watched the inauguration on television, amazed by Amy Claire's ability to turn adversity into opportunity for others. A year later, Amy Claire was invited to give a talk at a corporate event. The theme was Overcoming and Leadership. Richard was in the audience just like any other attendee. During her speech, Amy Claire told her story without resentment or bitterness. She spoke about the importance of persevering even when powerful people try to discourage you. She mentioned how she had learned that sometimes people act poorly out of fear or insecurity, not genuine malice. "What I've learned," she said, "is that we can choose how to respond to hardships. We can let them destroy us, or we can use them as fuel to become stronger." At the end of the talk, during the Q&A session, Richard stood up. "Amy Claire, my question is, do you think people who've made serious mistakes can be forgiven?" Amy Claire looked directly at him, recognizing him immediately. "I think forgiveness isn't something we give to others. It's something we give ourselves. When we forgive, we free our own energy for better things." "What about second chances? Do you believe people can truly change?" "I do, especially when they show change through actions, not just words." After the talk, Richard approached Amy Claire. "Thank you for your honest answer. Thank you for coming to listen to me, Mr. Thompson. I know it couldn't have been easy." "Amy Claire, may I ask you something?" "Of course. How did you manage not to hold anger toward me?" Amy Claire thought for a moment before answering. "Because I realized anger would turn me into someone I didn't want to be, and also because I saw that you changed. The anonymous sponsorship, coming to the airport to apologize, that showed you recognized your mistake. You're a better person than I deserve, Amy Claire. Mr. Thompson, everyone deserves a second chance, even you." 2 years later, Amy Claire had become a grandmaster, the youngest in US history. His chess school had expanded to 5 different communities, and hundreds of children were getting opportunities they never had before. Richard, in turn, had changed profoundly. He began getting involved in social projects, always quietly, especially those related to youth talent development. One Saturday afternoon, he showed up at Amy Claire's chess school as a volunteer. "Mr. Thompson," said Amy Claire, surprised to see him, "I came to offer help. I know you need more volunteer teachers. You know how to teach chess. I know the basics, and I also know business administration, accounting, fundraising. Maybe I can help on the organizational side." Amy Claire smiled. "That would be wonderful, Mr. Thompson. We always need help." "Amy Claire?" "Yes?" "Thank you for giving me this chance. Thank you for wanting to take it." End of story. Now, tell me what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave your honest thoughts in the comments. Do you think Amy Claire made the right decision by forgiving Richard? We'd love to hear your opinion. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like the video and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories.